Hello. Just so we can start to get to know each other a little bit, Maxwell, tell me a little bit about your work and what drew you to healthcare.
So I am a doctor of nursing practice, which everybody in the room is probably like, what the heck is that? So a doctor of nursing practice is a nurse practitioner with 2 additional years of training, a little bit of extra expertise. I went into healthcare. I'm a Christian. It's a big deal to me, and I wanted to help others out. And so through different ways, I realized the best way that I could do that was through healthcare.
And then in your work, what started ringing alarm bells for you that maybe UnitedHealth might be prioritizing profit over the well-being of the patients that you were caring for?
Yeah, so when I signed up for the job, I was talking with someone special to me, and they had this thing at UnitedHealthcare where if you had a low hospitalization rate, you'd make extra money. And I thought, okay, that's a novel idea. If I do a really good job and patients don't end up needing to go to the hospital, then I'm going to make more cash. Hey, great, cool. But as time went on, I started seeing that they were not just denying unnecessary hospitalizations, but they were denying necessary hospitalizations as well. I had a patient who was exhibiting stroke-type symptoms, and the nurse at the nursing facility had called the call center, and the call center provider there said, oh, it's probably just Bell's palsy, not a stroke. And subsequently, there was a delay in care. The patient ended up going to the hospital after the outside PCP intervened and was diagnosed with a stroke. He continued to have permanent neurologic deficits, though, as a consequence. They would look at every single hospitalization, every one of them, and review them whether they were necessary or not. And regardless of whether the hospitalization was determined to be necessary or unnecessary, it would count against the provider's bonus pay, and it also counted against the nursing homes because they were receiving money for avoidance of all-cause hospitalizations.
So then it sounds like there was a distinct kind of incentive structure slash maybe a bit of threats, so a bit of a carrot and a stick in terms of being able to carry this out.
That's right. So if the nursing facility sent someone to the hospital, it was considered a bypass. And we were instructed as providers to then train the nursing facilities that you can't bypass us. You have to call us first. And that was part of the deal for the nursing homes to receive this kickback. They would first receive money, just a base payment for the sheer number of patients they had enrolled. And this is, I know we're in Canada now, but this is American taxpayer dollars that are going to this, so it's kind of a big deal. And so they would give a base payment to the nursing facility just for the number of patients they had steered to that particular insurance plan. And then they would receive a much larger sum of money if they had avoided all-cause hospitalizations within a certain parameter. And that parameter was really very tight. For some nursing facilities, they might only be able to hospitalize 1 patient over the business quarter before they would lose out on that payment.
I know for some people in your situation where there's that cognitive dissonance between trying to provide the best care and then thinking about, the business behind that care, that sometimes it's a cumulative effect and sometimes it's one particular incident. What was it for you? What was the tipping point for you to come forward and say this isn't right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so one of the nurses reaches out to me and says, your patient is vomiting, and forgive me to the audience here, I know this is grotesque, but your patient is vomiting what appears to be fecal material. And they were worried about a GI bleed. So I start working him up for a GI bleed. Indeed, he is positive for bleeding. He's a high-risk patient, life-threatening type scenario. And my manager is telling me that she doesn't think that he needs to go to the hospital. And I couldn't believe it. She moved on to receive further approval from medical directors, and then sends me a message later on saying, go ahead and send the patient if you think it's the right care. But there was this massive delay, which, by the way, I sent him without asking for approval, just to be clear. But in that moment, I realized that this program is neglecting the patients, that this program is being used to deny care to those who have critical illnesses. Now, UnitedHealth Group has come back and said, well, no, we're just consultants here. It's entirely the provider's purview as to whether they send or not. I tried that. I did. I had a different patient who was coughing up copious blood, which we call hemoptysis. He had esophageal varices in his throat, blood vessels in his throat that had ruptured. He began to suffocate on his own blood. I was there within 15 minutes of the event occurring. His oxygen levels started dropping. He was agonizing, and he was dying right in front of me. So I bypassed their whole plan because they said you had to follow all of these steps before you sent someone to the hospital. And the steps they had lined up could take upwards of an entire day to complete. Call the family, talk to the patient, call the primary care provider, call the family back. It went in this kind of order. If you couldn't get a hold of somebody, which was frequent, it would further delay the process. That particular patient, I sent him straight to the hospital. He was admitted directly to the ICU, the intensive care unit. His life was saved, thank God, for that. But I ended up getting reprimanded because I had not followed every step in the process that they had laid out. So yeah, it was just egregious.
So then it sounds like there was a distinct pattern and a way of doing business as opposed to a one-off incident or something that led you to this.
That's correct. And I brought it up to them. I mean, with this first patient with the stroke that they said, oh, it's possible Bell's palsy, I said, that's a big miss. You can't diagnose Bell's palsy without a scan and without the expertise of a neurologist. Once that patient had hospital care and was exposed to the neurologist said, this is a stroke. But yeah, it was a frequent occurrence.
Libby, I want to turn to you now. Explain to us how you got involved and the role that Whistleblower Aid played in helping Maxwell get his story out.
Sure. We came on several years after Maxwell decided to come forward, and Whistleblower Aid supports public interest whistleblowers. Like Max, people who are driven by their conscience to come forward and raise to the public or policymakers things that have been hidden. And so Max reached out to us through our intake line, which is available on our website, whistleblower.org. And so we did an intake, we had a meeting, we quickly ascertained that he was a prime candidate to be one of our clients because he's motivated by his conscience. This is real harm to real people happening every day. And he had experienced quite a lot of trauma from going through all the efforts that he did to try to fix this situation internally or even through authorities that they're supposed to be doing. So he was perfect for our care because we provide complete wraparound services. We care about your mental health, your physical health, everything that's going on in your life, your future, your family, your stability. And so that's when we came on board. And it's been an extremely important disclosure that he's raising because something that he didn't point out, which I do want to say, is that all of this is in compliance with something they call the playbook. So the playbook is the required steps and everything that they've created in between you and sending someone to get the critical care they need. So the call center is a remote place with, I'm guessing, nurse practitioners who look at data. They've never met the patient. They haven't talked to anybody deeply about the history or the circumstances. Basically, their job is to ask more questions so that there are more legitimate delays as people try to get more information. And so the playbook is national, and everybody has to go through it. And I think that that is really important.
Now, some jurisdictions have more robust whistleblower protections than others. There can be quite a patchwork. There's some loopholes in various types of coverage. But do you think that Maxwell's story should be a wake-up call for legislators of all stripes to really look at that legislation and what it actually is and isn't doing?
100%. I think the U.S. has the best whistleblower protection laws in the world, but still not good enough because the reality is the power between David and Goliath, a single whistleblower, and an enormous corporation and or government agency, whatever it is so skewed. But without whistleblowers, we'll never know what's really going on, right? I mean, there'll be no transparency and no accountability, especially in circumstances that are very opaque, like, say, the largest healthcare insurer in the country. They've got a lot of power, a lot of money, a lot of resources.
Maxwell, we've been talking about the legalities and a lot of the facts and the patterns in the business, but I also wonder what it was like on an emotional level, because I think when you speak up against your employer, there's just got to be tremendous fear there that you could lose your livelihood, maybe you could even lose your friends, and I just wonder what you were feeling as you were kind of trying to go through this process and what you're feeling now, if there's been a catharsis. I mean, walk us through a little bit of that journey.
No, it was absolutely terrible. Yeah, I'll tell you that, unless there are lives involved, don't do it. But, I had to find ways to manage that tension. I ended up choosing marathon running and ultra marathon running just because it would take that pain away for a period of time. But because of the way they had spoken to me, because of the things they had said, you doubt who you are as a professional, as a person, they frequently would double down and deny it, and they still are doubling down and denying it, but the lid has come off and it's all beginning to crumble for them. So feeling that accountability is a big deal. I mean, it's been almost 6 years now since I informed UnitedHealth Group of the practices. I went all the way to the tip-top of their compliance departments and lines, and that tip-top compliance line turned around and put me on a performance improvement plan.
Experienced extreme retaliation from the employer during the time.
Yeah. So the marathons were good. If never you have done it, you should. It's a lot of fun, but it feels so much better to be at this point here where everything had died and I thought it's hopeless, and my constant prayer was that God would bring about accountability and that he would open this up again. And then, lo and behold, the Guardian reached out. So thank God for that. I mean, it really has made a substantial difference.
Well, journalists can make a huge difference in getting this information out and trying to put together the puzzles. But, I mean, Libby, when you and I were talking, you told me that courage is contagious. And I think that's a phrase that's going to stick with me long after this discussion is over. Tell me a little bit about when somebody like Maxwell shares their story, do you find that other people come forward? Do you find that there's that curiosity? Like, what would it take for me to be in this seat, being able to have that catharsis and being able to go through this?
100%. With every one of our cases, what we want to be the message is that there is a safe way, there is a lawful way to do the thing your conscience is telling you to do. And there's an organization, ours, that is going to make sure that you're protected and that you achieve some of that impact, which, in a case like Max's, is that anguish from all of those years and the psychological operations that the company plays on you. So how can you think it's a failure if you save a person's life? I mean, that's how deep the culture went to adhere to this playbook.
That's right. It was just absolutely crazy, in hindsight, when you think about it, to save someone's life and be reprimanded for it. To do everything to prevent the harm, to prevent the suffering, and still you are in trouble for it. So just the craziest program. But I suspect now we're going to begin to see accountability. Again, the lid has broken off of this. We're getting quite a bit of traction, and it's just a matter of time until folks on the government side end up taking some action.
And to answer your original question, yes. When a whistleblower comes forward, all the other people that are in the company that have been experiencing that anguish themselves, they can be inspired to come forward. And it's always better if more people come forward, because everybody's got different pieces of evidence and information and stories, and just get a thorough and deep investigation that leads to change, that's what we need.
Yeah.
I imagine, though, that when you're in that ecosystem, it's normalized.
It's very
all sorts of
normalized.
things that now, I mean, we're listening horrified to a bunch of this stuff, but when you were there, that was normal. So I think it's actually hard when you're in the soup to realize that you're in the pot, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so some of the other providers that I've spoken with have kind of suffered psychologically with thinking that, it's not okay to hospitalize people. I remember when I transitioned jobs, it was a little like micro panic attack whenever I would have to send someone to the hospital, because that had been ingrained in me that you don't send people to the hospital, even if they're sitting there dying in front of you. So to see some of them feeling the same way, it's just that none of them would talk about it amongst themselves. But now we're here, we're opening it up, the world knows. I'm in Canada, for crying out loud. This is not just a we the people thing anymore. This is a we the world saying this behavior is completely unacceptable.
And I'm glad you brought up where we are, because this is just so foreign to Canadians given our public health care system. But we do have a creep of privatization. There is some private delivery of public health care, and I wonder if your experience and your story could serve as a warning to our policymakers, or what lessons we think that you think that we should take from this in terms of allowing more of that privatization in our system.
The caution I will give Canadians is, I personally have nothing wrong with free market, but you have to have accountability. If something wrong occurs, you have to hold the company accountable. You cannot allow it to continue. Here's what happens when you let one company permissively do these things. It spreads like a virus to other companies. You have to smash it as soon as it begins and say, this is unacceptable. We as a country will not put up with this.
Libby, any final thoughts?
I just am so proud of Max and all the really brave whistleblowers that come forward, because it is a tough, tough road. And there's a reason very few people become public interest whistleblowers, because everything is against them. But you have a voice, you have a conscience, you can sleep at night. And all of the families that I'm picturing, all the families who have loved ones that have suffered because of this program, I really hope it gives them validation, and it should be a warning to other families. Do not sign your family members up to UnitedHealth Group. Do not do it.
I want to thank you both for your time. I want to thank the audience, and I just want to point out this is Maxwell's first public speaking about his experience, so let's give him an extra big round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you so much.